Thanks for joining us on this edition of Who Moved the Market. I'm Surabhi Upadhyay, and today we're going to discuss a very interesting theme on the show. You might have noticed this big move that's happening on a couple of stocks which come in from the electronics manufacturing arena. We've had good numbers, for instance, from the likes of an Amber overnight, and that's why that stock's been up almost in double digits. Then there is Kaynes Technologies, which is a recent listing. It's a newer company on the block. And again, because of Q4 numbers, the stock's shooting through the roof, 15–16% higher. That brings us to a very interesting question. What are the tailwinds, if any, when you're looking at the electronics manufacturing space? So we thought we will get in an expert to help us analyze this, and we have lots of questions lined up ahead. We'll be having Rahul Gajare, ED of Haitong Securities, with us on the show today to analyze some of these trends. Rahul, thanks very much for joining in, and welcome on this episode of Who Moved the Market.
Thank you, Surabhi, for having me over here.
Okay.
I'm happy.
Super. We are so glad that you could make it, because I know that you have written a very detailed note on this entire ecosystem. I want to start with the broader headlines. Now, we all know that electronics manufacturing in India has taken off. Our exports in terms of electronics have been going up. Actually, even in the month of April, our total merchandise exports were down 12%, but electronics exports were up almost 25%. So while those are the macro headlines, help us understand the micro. First things first, what we're seeing today, these result reactions, is this just a flash in the pan, or is this a much bigger story that's playing out?
I think EMS as an industry, there is a huge tailwind which will be driving EMS, I would think, at least for the next 10 years. And this is essentially coming from a lot of things that India is doing, in order to promote manufacturing in India. Import substitution, make in India, China Plus One, all of these are something which will ensure that the tailwind remains strong for the next maybe 10 years or even longer. And mind you, this industry, it takes a long time, for the ecosystem to get developed. Even today, while we might be manufacturing a mobile phone, but a large part of those components are actually getting imported. So, with a little bit of forward integration, a little bit of backward integration, this is a long journey in the EMS space. And this is both on consumer facing companies and industry facing EMS companies. So it's a long haul, but a very positive tailwind that we are seeing for this particular space.
Okay, got that. It's interesting why the market also is perhaps really excited today, because some of the bigger known stocks, which we've known in the market for a longer time, which is Dixon Technologies or Amber, there the stocks have underperformed. This year, for instance, I was just checking, I think Amber is down 20–25%. Dixon hasn't done much. It's also down 15–16% in just the last 1 year, underperforming what, let's say, the Nifty is doing. Some of these companies have been very cautious in terms of guidance. I think Dixon has reduced guidance over the last few months as well. So if we're saying the macro tailwinds are in place, the longer term trajectory is in place, the stocks haven't done well. So what's really going on, and how should we divide this?
Yeah. So like I said, one has to look at consumer EMS companies separately and industry EMS companies separately. Now, Amber and Dixon, these are EMS on the consumer side. There is a lot of the factors which typically determine the growth of these companies will be the demand scenario. And unfortunately, demand for likes of inflation and global factors also has been slow. That is impacting business of companies like Dixon, and that is the reason why, that stock has underperformed. Even for Amber, while we've seen very strong uptake, in the cooling business, essentially around in the summer months. But besides that, the other aspects of the company was not doing very well. PLI, which was expected to push manufacturing of air conditioning, a lot of that actually goes and sits inside the brand. So for Amber, that actually became a little bit of a negative aspects, and the company started focusing or diversifying more into the component business, and that is what happened. And that's the reason really that these stocks have been underperforming. And multiples had also gone to such level that they were clearly not sustainable. Some of the stocks were trading at higher multiples than the brand itself. So that correction was due any which ways.
So before I talk about the industrials, let me complete this conversation on consumer electronic manufacturers, the likes of Amber and Dixon that you're describing. So has this correction brought them to interesting levels? Do they look like potential buys to you now?
Absolutely. I think valuations have come at a very attractive level, and I think a lot of downside in these stocks is pretty much behind. From here on, with with the basic growth that we are seeing in this industry, I think valuation will take off from here, from this level. But I don't think they will go back to those historical levels of 50 or 55 times, because those are multiples which are not sustainable for contract manufacturers. So the stocks have bottomed, and I think we should see up move in these stocks from here on. Thank you.
Okay, and what would you say would be a a reasonable fair value zone? As you said, 50-55 times is not sustainable, but what would be a comfort zone for you?
I would think companies like Dixon should ideally trade between 35 to 40 times, and maybe Amber could be slightly lower than that. That is, I think, the fair zone. So maybe between 30 to 35, 40 times. I think that's a fair zone for these companies.
Okay, got that. Now, Rahul, I want to talk about the other basket, which are electronic manufacturers, but for the industrial side. And Kaynes, Syrma, Avalon, these are some names. I think these are companies on which you have coverage. I was reading a little bit on Kaynes. I mean, they're kind of into so many different things like smart metering, I mean, controlling, I think, lighting systems, a whole lot of sort of, complex electronic components. So tell us more about it. Why are you optimistic on this part of electronic manufacturing?
See, basically what is happening is, we are looking at a capex cycle after a very long time. And along with capex cycle, what is happening is, there is a lot of emphasis on make in India, which is seen in defense industries. A lot of manufacturing industries also are looking at India as a manufacturing hub. While recently there were some electronic manufacturing which had moved to countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, but those countries are still under the influence of China. So somebody who wants to deal with Western market, essentially European or American market, they would prefer to have manufacturing bases in likes of India. And I think the scale that India brings, in terms of the large domestic market, along with export opportunity, low cost labor, and the fact that we have a good design talent, I think all of these things make India a very attractive proposition market, for manufacturing base. Now, on the industrial side, unlike consumer electronic, where Dixon might be manufacturing mobile phones and all, industrial will be fairly complex. There will be lower volume. So typically they will have higher margin. That is how the business model is. And, with more and more manufacturing, which is actually going to happen in India, I think there will be a strong tailwind for these companies.
Okay, so let's get some more details in on these three that are under your coverage. What's the story, say, with Kaynes? And it's a recent listing. The stock's done very well. I think listed somewhere around 700. Today we're talking about a price of 1100. What's the upside? And again, valuations become quite important to understand. Would you be sort of giving them, let's say, higher multiples than the consumer electronic guys that we just spoke of?
No, I think, companies like Dixon will bring a huge scale, which will not be the case in some of these companies on the industrial side. Industrial side, these companies are still very small right now. And, EMS space might look very attractive, but there are a whole lot of companies, very small companies who are there in the market. As we go along, over the next couple of years, there might be more consolidation. But I think the companies who've come to the capital market, these guys have achieved the kind of scale that is required. Doing 500 crore or 1,000 crores of revenue is a very large business for industrial EMS companies. And, the investment argument for each of these companies is pretty much similar, that unlike consumer side, where the dependence on a particular customer might be very high, on industrial side, they might be catering to multiple sectors, multiple industries, and multiple customers. So the dependence on one particular customer is very, very low. I think for each of these three companies that I have initiated recently, I don't think a single customer accounts for more than 10% of the total revenue. That brings stability, well-diversified business model. And the other aspects are, each of them would either try to do some bit of forward integration or some bit of backward integration, because the core business at this point in time is PCB assembly. So that's like the starting point of this. And, with the increase in electronic consumption that we are seeing in India today, across the sectors, across industries, I think the demand for these kind of industries will only increase from here on.
Okay.
So each of them are in a sweet spot, and they would have certain industries where they would have higher, deeper client relationship. I think that is clearly the moat in this industry.
Okay, I'm just trying to de-jargonize and simplify for our viewers. When you say PCB assembly, what exactly is the product over here? PCB
is, that green board which typically sits in most of the electronic.
Okay.
It is
the circuit board.
assembly board. So that is the board,
Okay.
and that's the starting point of any electronic. And I think the way these companies will typically add value is, do forward integration in terms of, put box build together and then try to supply it to their customers. So that is how they will have more sticky customers.
Okay. Again, just in terms of valuations, how do you sort of rank them? What's the multiple you're willing to give? And what's the upside? I mean, you've initiated coverage. You have an outperform rating on all these three stocks. I'll repeat the stocks for our viewers' benefit. Avalon Technologies, market cap right now is close to 2,500. There's Sirma. The market cap is around 5,600 odd. And then there's Kaynes with the market cap of just under 7,000 crores. So valuation multiples and your expected upside, rough upside ranges on these stocks.
So typically, when you look at these companies, you'll have to compare how the global EMS companies do. Given that we have a significant headwind, not headwind, tailwind in this particular industry, we see a strong growth. And in capital market, wherever there is growth, there are multiples. So what I have done is I've given a multiple of 30 times to all these companies. At this point in time, these companies are trading anywhere between 20 to 25 1 year forward P multiple, and I'd be happy to give it a 30 multiple. That's what I've done. So I've given a discount compared to Dixon because of the nature of the business. The scale is significantly smaller. These companies will take some time to prove themselves, to the market. I think that is the reason why you want to take it slow.
All right, got that. Rahul, very, very helpful conversation. I think it gives us lots of food for thought. Thank you for explaining the reason why the market is getting so excited about some of these niche plays in the electronic manufacturing entire ecosystem. So appreciate you joining in. Thank you very much. This has been a very helpful conversation for our viewers.
Thank you very much. My pleasure.
All right, there you have it. That's a view from Haitong Securities India. And now you understand why the market's getting excited about some of these companies which make components both on the consumer side and also on the industrial side. So electronics is in focus today. With that, we come to the end of this edition of Who Moved the Market. Keep sending us your feedback, your comments, and more questions. We'll see you again tomorrow with another theme.